Daily Words of God. Can you see the essence of God's wrath in His destruction of Sodom? Is there anything else mingled within His rage? Is God's rage pure? To use the words of man, is God's wrath unadulterated? Is there any deception behind His wrath? Is there any conspiracy? Are there any unspeakable secrets? I can tell you sternly and solemnly, there is no part of God's wrath that can lead one to doubt. His anger is a pure, unadulterated anger that harbors no other intentions or goals. The reasons behind His anger are pure, blameless, and above criticism. It is a natural revelation and display of His holy essence. It is something that nothing in all of creation possesses. This is a part of God's unique righteous disposition, and it is also a striking difference between the respective essences of the Creator and His creation. Regardless of whether one becomes angry in the sight of others or behind their backs, everyone has a different intention and purpose to their anger. Perhaps they are building up their prestige, or maybe they are defending their own interests, maintaining their image, or keeping face. Some exercise restraint in their anger, while others are more rash and allow their rage to flare up whenever they wish without the least bit of restraint. In short, man's anger derives from his corrupt disposition. No matter what its purpose, it is of the flesh and of nature. It has nothing to do with justice or injustice, because nothing in man's nature and essence corresponds to the truth. Therefore, corrupt humanity's temper and God's wrath should not be mentioned in the same breath. Without exception, the behavior of a man corrupted by Satan begins with a desire to safeguard corruption, and indeed it is based on corruption. This is why man's anger cannot be mentioned in the same breath as God's wrath, no matter how proper a man's anger may seem in theory. When God sends forth His rage, evil forces are checked and evil things are destroyed, while just and positive things come to enjoy God's care and protection and are allowed to continue. God sends forth His wrath because unjust, negative, and evil things obstruct, disturb, or destroy the normal activity and development of just and positive things. The goal of God's anger is not to safeguard His own status and identity, but to safeguard the existence of just, positive, beautiful, and good things, to safeguard the laws and order of humanity's normal survival. This is the root cause of God's wrath. God's rage is a very proper, natural, and true revelation of His disposition. There are no ulterior motives in His rage, and nor is there deceit or plotting, let alone the desires, craftiness, malice, violence, evil, or any of corrupt humanity's other shared traits. Before God sends forth His rage, He has already perceived the essence of every matter quite clearly and completely, and He has already formulated accurate, clear definitions and conclusions. Thus, God's objective in everything He does is crystal clear, as is His attitude. He is not muddle-headed, blind, impulsive, or careless, and He is certainly not unprincipled. This is the practical aspect of God's wrath, and it is because of this practical aspect of God's wrath that humanity has attained its normal existence. Without God's wrath, humanity would descend into abnormal living conditions, and all things just, beautiful, and good would be destroyed and cease to exist. Without God's wrath, the laws and rules of existence for created beings would be broken or even utterly subverted. Since the creation of man, God has continuously used His righteous disposition to safeguard and sustain humanity's normal existence. Because His righteous disposition contains wrath and majesty, all evil people, things, and objects, and all things that disturb and damage humanity's normal existence are punished, controlled, and destroyed as a result of His wrath. Over the past several millennia, God has continuously used His righteous disposition to strike down and destroy all kinds of unclean and evil spirits, which oppose God and act as Satan's accomplices and lackeys in God's work of managing humanity. Thus, God's work of the salvation of man has always advanced according to His plan. This is to say that because of the existence of God's wrath, the most righteous causes of men have never been destroyed.